Good morning, my name is Jesse Boyd. I'm the head instructor at Catawba Valley Martial Arts in Hickory, North Carolina. I've got with me one of my students, Daniel Middleton. He's going to serve as an uke for me today. I'd like to spend the next little while breaking down and analyzing some of the early Chang Moo Kwan kata, particularly the first three Pyan Dan forms. I'd like to look at several different Bunkai applications. Some will involve tuite, some will involve striking, some will involve pressure points, some will involve Aikido principle, but I think these very simple kata, which were obviously designed by In Yun Byung sometime prior to 1940, not only bear the hallmarks of the karate training that he got from Kenken Toyama in Japan, but also some of his training in Chuan Fa. He was the first Korean national to study martial arts outside of Korea, under the tutelage of a Mongolian grandmaster in Chinese Kung Fu. So these kata bear the fingerprints of an eclectic style that utilize both hard and soft martial arts. And so I think there's some amazing Bunkai application that can be drawn from these very simple kata. And so I want to thank my student Daniel here for agreeing to uke for me, and I hope these will give you a little insight into how complex a simple kata can actually be. Kata is of foundational importance. I believe it defines a style, and I believe that kata is the bridge to prompt and effective disarmament. And unfortunately, in a lot of martial arts schools today, kata is disdained, the importance thereof is minimized, and students have no idea where their katas came from or what type of technique and Goshin Ho or self-defense is couched within these amazing forms, every bit of which was designed by the old masters for a reason. So I hope that some of this interpretation will prove a blessing to you today. I want to start out, and I've got my notes here I'm going to be referring to intermittently, but I want to start out with the first of the Pyan Dan forms, Pyan Dan IL. And in this kata, as we get into the second section, we see a little bit of the Kung Fu influence with the cat stance and this throat grab here. From this point, moves 8, 9, and 10 are a series of rising blocks. 1, 2, 3 with the Kia. So we have the rising block 3 times. And that's one of the very first things that we teach in terms of blocking technique here in this dojo is the rising block. You know, students first learn their rising block, inside block, outside block, and downward block. And oftentimes people think of these as just defense techniques to fend off an attack of some sort. When in reality, strikes and blocks are enshrouding facades. They're a facade that enshrouds much deeper things in terms of application. And I believe that a rising block is not only an effective block, but more so it's an effective strike. And if applied properly, it's one of the most effective ways to disarm an opponent through attending or through striking. And it's a great way to disturb one's balance. And I think we see that here in this kata. Daniel, if you'll come forward. I want to look at the rising block, not as just a block from a strike, but as a strike itself. And if Daniel were to throw a punch, I can block that real easy and step in here across the neck. I'm looking at a junction of pressure point meridians here along the jawline, the neck, and behind the ear. And to explode through here with your typical rising block is a very effective strike, and it's a way to run over someone. In fact, in one of our basic Aikido kata, when we line up here for what we call the basic 15, we have this applied. It goes here, I take his balance, I come through here with what's called Gyakyu Game Ate. And so I think one application of the rising block is a very effective Gyakyu Game. Please forgive me, my Japanese pronunciation is probably horrible. But the Gyakyu Game Ate that we see in Aikido, a very effective way to run over or to strike someone or disable them. If done properly, let's say from a grab, I can rake these wrist pressure points on the heart and lung meridian. If I want to add a little extra, I I can break his balance here on the large intestine, and then I can come in here across the side of the head where there's a whole grouping of gallbladder points, and what in effect will happen is I'll knock him out when you start connecting the pressure points and disrupting the ki along multiple junctures, particularly meridians that work in conjunction with each other on the destructive cycle. You're going to affect a knockout. So the rising block is a great strike if performed with that upward motion, particularly along the neck and under the jaw. In the kata, setting up these rising blocks, we come from here as we begin to face the forward direction. From this point, we see a little bit of a Chuan Fa movement here with the crane stance and the throat grab. Then it steps in to the rising block. And so this move starts. I've gone to my right side. I turn to my left here into this rising block. I think there's a very good application from this sequence of moves if my attacker were to grab me from behind. So let's say the attacker, I'm facing this direction, he's going to reach and grab my shoulder, and he wants to turn me into him and knock me out, or jack my jaw, or whatever you want to say. If I'm standing here, I'm facing this direction as I would be in the kata. He goes to grab. I'm going to trap his hand and quickly turn around and use my downward block as a strike to this spleen meridian. Okay, I can get low here, the inner gate, number 12, 11, or go high in the groin here to disturb his balance. Once I've struck him here effectively, using the downward block as a strike, he's not going to be thinking about punching me. Then I'm going to come up and apply pressure along the large intestine meridian and further break his balance here. This is this technique out of the kata, and then I can step through for the knockout with the rising block here. Okay? So I've disrupted his balance on the spleen meridian. I further exacerbated the pressure point meridians on the large intestine, and then I step through for the final technique. So in a little bit more of a realistic way, bow, here. And if done properly, he probably won't get up too quickly. So we've got this move, followed by the rising block, and a very interesting application performed from when the attacker grabs from behind. I do want to go back to the rising block from Pyan Dan IL for a second. If he grabs me, very simple application to disarm him. Again, I reverse that grab, take his balance, I can ignite the wrist points, and when we perform the rising block, we start across the belly with the palm up, and you'll notice the arm rotates. This is creating centrifugal force. What I'm going to do here, I'm using his elbow as a fulcrum and his arm as a lever. In double way action, I'm going to push down and I'm going to rotate my arm up to ignite this rub point behind the elbow. Triple warmer 11 here. I've got a two-a-tay submission technique. So you've got this rotating motion of the rising block here. And then if I wanted to follow through with the elbow to the side of the head, it would be an application of this, followed by the second rising block out of Pyan Dan IL. Okay, I want to take the rising block out of the equation from Pyan Dan IL for a moment and look at this same sequence of techniques. We come here toward the beginning of the kata with the downward block, and what we see is a bit of a parry with the right hand as I shift into a cat stance, followed by what looks like a throat grab or a cupped hand strike to the jaw. And then following this, of course, we have the series of rising blocks. I just want to look at this sequence here without the rising block and an application thereof. If he were to grab my lapel, okay, what I want to do here is I want to trap him. I'm going to ignite some wrist points. I got the heart 6, the lung 8 here. I'm just going to take his balance by trapping the arm and giving it a little bit of a torque. So as he grabs here, I'm going to take my right hand. This is showing this evading motion or parrying motion from the kata, and I'm going to rake down this will be the large intestine meridian of the arm, where I could even possibly go to the lung. But as I rake down, I'm going to pull myself into the cat stance to take his balance, and then from here, his jaw is right here. I followed up with this cup hand right along the jawline. You've got your stomach 6 and your stomach 5 points, and I can just drive in here. And again, I've affected what should be a pressure point knockout. So again, it's a lapel grab here, and then I'm just going to come through with this cupped hand technique to the jawline. So there's an application devoid of the rising block where I enter from the same side. The other one we showed a minute ago, I enter and run over him from the opposite side. So both would work from a grab. It could work from a punch as well. If he goes to punch, I can parry, catch the punch, rake it as I'm coming down here. Okay, so either way would work. I want to look at the beginning of the kata for a moment. Pyan Dan IL starts out in this fashion. You've got a downward block, punch, downward block, and then you're going to see a rotating hammer fist strike into a cat stance, followed by a punch on the left side. And I want to make application from this. So we've got this motion here, hammer fist above the knee from a cat stance, followed by a punch. There's a very interesting application, and I don't know if you'd see this grab too often, but I want to look at say somebody comes up and grabs my forearm and wants to take me with them. I know that this is done. I've been grabbed by a police officer like this in Bangladesh. I was engaged in some missionary activity over there, which is illegal in that Muslim country, and I was told I was under arrest for handing out Bibles on the street corner, and the policeman grabbed me this way and said, "Come with me." Now obviously I didn't do anything because you don't have a Bill of Rights or a First Amendment in Bangladesh, but thankfully the Lord did deliver me from that situation. So I know this is a realistic grab. If he were to grab my forearm to take me with him, what I want to do is trap him. It's that principle of adhesion or muchimi, to grab him and to maintain contact so that he doesn't pull away. If I try to pull away here and I do it too hard, he's probably going to let go and we're back to square one. But if he grabs and I trap, it's going to cause him to want to pull me more. What I'm going to do is rotate around, and then I'm going to strike down on large intestine 10 here. Just same motion, the hammer fist. As he goes to pull, I've got his balance here. If I really strike, I've ignited the pressure point. If I come through, just like I stepped through on the punch in the kata, if I come through and put pressure on his, if I can just put pressure on his foot right here at gallbladder 43, follow through with a punch to the gallbladder meridian right here on the rib cage, I should affect the knockout. So again, he grabs, I'm going to go into my cat stance as I break him down, and then let me do that again. I want to go into the cat stance on this side to break his balance. Then I step through, boom, here. So I've ignited a pressure point on the large intestine meridian and at least 2 points on the gallbladder meridian. The cat stance is important because what it does is I pull it toward my center, it's going to pull his balance here. Then I can step through here. Okay? Or if I wanted to go high instead of low, I could go high with that Gyaku Gameate, or that rising block, to affect a knockout. The problem with going high is it's going to cause the low to bow out, and it could take my balance. But if I go low here to the gallbladder meridian, it should disarm him. At the end of Pyan Dan IL, we have a series of shuto blocks, or double knife hand blocks, or strikes, or whatever you want to call them. From this last punch with the kia, I've got the wide chamber knife hand block on the straight, followed by one on the 45, followed by a third one on the 45, on the straight, and a fourth one on the 45. Okay? So I've got this series of what we call a shuto block. It's been referred to as a knife hand. It could be a strike. And we have a series of 4 of them. This comes straight from the Heian forms in the old Japanese Okinawan karate kata. We have these knife blocks in our Cheonjikido forms, and so they're a part of many, many old katas or traditional forms that come down through the striking art tradition. And I think there's some very interesting ways to apply these techniques. There's 2 ways to chamber the knife block. In our forms, we chamber here, keeping this arm here as a guard and chambering at the ear like a downward block, here. In the Chang Moo Kwan forms, the Pyan Dan IL, Som, Sa, O, all of them have it. It's a wide chamber from the rear, like so. And this is often looked at as just a chamber, when in reality this reverse motion is very important, and it actually sets up the forward motion. And so I want to show some application from that. Very simple. I think this rearward motion followed by the forward block or strike is showing, or an effective application would involve pressure point theory. If he's going to punch me, this rear motion is just as important as the forward motion, because I can ignite the pressure point meridian here. So I'm going to, or drain, what we call draining of the energy. So this reverse chamber, as he goes to punch, I'm going to drain the energy here. So I've lit up the small intestine meridian, or from a little bit on the inside, the lung meridian. As I've drained the energy, it opens up his neck here for me to come forward here, like so. And so let's do it with the left hand. He comes forward, I've drained the energy here, this reverse motion, and then I'm stepping forward with the striking aspect. That's one application of those Shuto blocks. I can do this from a grab as well. If he grabs and I want to reverse this grab, or if he goes to punch, a little Muchini, I parry and grab the wrist points, heart 6, lung 8, I've broken his balance. Either way, a punch or a grab, I've exposed his large intestine and his lung meridians right here. So from this position, from a punch, you're going to again see this reverse motion from the knife hand block. I can ignite one of these meridians, and you notice the knee bends. I've broken his balance. Okay? I've got the wrist points here. I break the balance, the reverse motion, and then I just come in here to the side of the neck. So those wrist points coupled with the large intestine 10 or the lung, I believe it's lung 5, and then the stomach points here on the neck should affect the knockout. So we can have a parry to the rear of his punch followed by the strike, like so. Or we can catch the punch or reverse the grab. You've got the rear motion, breaking his balance, as shown by the bend of the knee, followed by the forward Shuto strike to the neck. Either way is going to be a knockout. We've talked about Gyaku Gameate from the rising block, powering through. It's really the same thing with the double knife hand block. So Gyaku Gameate can be an application of the rising block. It can be an application of the double knife hand. He goes in to, I take his balance here, like I'm going to the rear. He goes in to reach. I grab his balance here. Bow! I come over top. Gyaku Gameate, just another application.